NFL trade deadline is coming up on Tuesday, November 4th. So let's get into it here on the San Francisco 49ers Report. We're talking about some Niners trade buzz, a look into the latest rumblings around the Niners going into the deadline. And with the deadline coming up on Tuesday, a programming reminder, a programming alert. We're going to be live here all day on the San Francisco 49ers Report. So subscribe to the channel. But when you do that, hit that bell icon, turn on your notifications, and hit all. Therefore, anytime I push out a video, anytime we go live for a live show or a watch party, you'll be notified, and you can help us grow the empire. We're approaching 179,000 subscribers, less than 200 people away from that milestone. So the deadline coming up for all 32 teams across the National Football League. We're going into Week 9 for San Francisco. They're on the road playing the Giants. They play the Rams at home in Week 10. And so this deadline is after Week 9 going into Week 10 on Tuesday, November 4th. As I mentioned, the Niners so far have made one move during the season. That's trading for defensive end Keon White, a move that I like because of his positional versatility, still a young player, under contract next year. The Niners didn't give up a lot, and he fits the prototype for what the Niners look for and like at the defensive end spot. Playing defensive end, defensive tackle with really good size, and he can win with some power moves. Here's what John Lynch said on KNBR about the possibility of him making a move for San Francisco. I'll never say never because we still have some time left on this deadline. We like whoever we trade for to be here for more than just the end of the season. We also want to keep our draft picks. We don't want to eat into that too much, but also want to bolster our team this year. Obviously, the Niners did that with Keon White, giving up a late rounder. It's no big deal. And I think that move is going to be beneficial for San Francisco because they were desperate to do something at defensive end. And speaking of this game, looking ahead to Sunday, right? Think about it. This game against the Giants is huge. There is a massive difference between being 6-3 going into the trade deadline and 5-4. Now, it might only be a one-game swing, but 3 games above 500 compared to 1 game above 500, that's the swing that I'm talking about in the standings. But the belief that you have in yourselves as a football team, if you're the general manager, thinking about, pondering about, potentially making a move. Now, I've said for a long while here that I think the Niners need to make a move or moves, and I predicted they could make a couple. Well, Keon White was one trade that the Niners made on Tuesday, and I think there's another move that they could make, especially if they beat the Giants. I think it's a little bit too late in the week to make a trade going into Week 9, but going into the deadline, that's when the Niners could strike. And you look at where things stand in the NFC West right now. Niners, Rams, Seahawks all have 5 wins. The Seahawks and Rams are above the Niners because they have a fewer loss, right? 2 losses, 2 losses. But what the Niners have working for them, they are 3-0 in the NFC West right now. They beat Seattle. They beat the Rams. They beat the Cardinals. And so in this division, they're in a good spot. And still in the NFL, even though this has been a little bit controversial, you win your division, you host a playoff game. Then you look at some of the other standings across the entire NFC to see the outlook here for the Niners and other teams, and you'll see how closely contested everything is. And Chip, I can just pull this up real quick on my front. It is such a wide open conference, and it's a year where I don't know if anybody knows who the best team is, if there's a bona fide Super Bowl favorite. I'd say right now, the Kansas City Chiefs are playing the best among all teams, but to start the year, they looked very talent deficient. The Indianapolis Colts are certainly a threat. They're currently the number 1 seed in the AFC, but obviously they don't have a long track record of success with their current regime under Shane Steichen, and they have Daniel Jones, who the Giants let go because they couldn't take him any longer. And then in the NFC, it's competitive, it's close, but it's wide open. And so if you're the Niners, you get to 6-3, I think you have to make a move because you are a factor inside this conference. Now, here's how the standings go. Green Bay Packers have the number 1 spot at 5-1-1. The Niners have as many wins as Green Bay does. The Philadelphia Eagles, 2 seed at 6-2. Buccaneers, 3 seed at 6-2. Then you have the Seahawks at 5-2. Niners already have the head-to-head. They'll play them the final week of the season. Lions at 5-2, Rams at 5-2, and right now the final playoff spot would go to San Francisco at 5-3. If the season were to end today in the wild card round, they'd be on the road to play the Philadelphia Eagles in that 2-7 matchup. On their heels, the Bears, who they play this year, the Panthers, who they play this year, then the Dallas Cowboys at 3-4-1. And so if the Niners go out there and they trade for a defensive end, that improves your pass rush, which has been one of the worst pass rushing units in the NFL. But if you're able to generate a pass rush and that defensive end can help improve against the run, what does it do for the rest of your defense? It benefits everybody else. If you can't get pressure on the quarterback, it is impossible to play cornerback and safety and play defensive back there when the quarterback has all day to survey the field, go through their reads and progressions, and pick you apart. That's what happened against C.J. Stroud last week. And this is something that the Niners need to improve upon. They trade for Keon White. They sign Clelin Ferrell. Yetur Gross-Matos might be able to play against the Giants on Sunday. We'll see, dealing with that hammy. Bryce Huff, not going to play against the Giants, could play in Week 10 against the Rams. So obviously, those are reinforcements there. But I still think the Niners could stand to make another move. Because look at their pass rushing stats this year. Total sacks, only 9 as a team. And they've played 8 games. That's 30th in the NFL. Total pressures, 86 of them. It's 28th in the league. Total hurries, 70 hurries. That's 18th. Pressure rate, 29.25%. It's dead last in the NFL. Sack rate, 3%. That's 31st. So you also think about it from this standpoint too, right? You might only have Robert Saleh this year. Robert Saleh has been maybe the best defensive coordinator in football, considering what he's done with all of these injuries to Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, others, combined with having to have all of these young players play big roles. Maximize and take advantage of the 1 year that you might have Robert Saleh. Plus, if you give him some more ingredients for the recipe, he's going to be able to make it work. And so you think about what the Niners have done so far at defensive end. Keon White, he helps you inside, outside. He can play defensive end. He can play defensive tackle. Clelin Ferrell added to the practice squad. He replaces Travis Gibson, who you lost. Still to come, get a true pass rusher in here, and that will make this defense a scary unit, in my opinion, because you're good and good enough at linebacker. You're good in the secondary. Safeties need to improve a little bit, but again, it's not fair to safeties, I should say, if you can't get pressure on the QB. Now, coming up next, more Niners trade intel from ESPN. Don't go anywhere. That's coming up here just around the corner. But let's get to our sponsor, our friends at Harry's. I've been using their razors for a really long time, and we have a phenomenal deal if you go to harrys.com/chat and use the code chat. This really has been a game-changing product for me, and I've been using them over the last several months. You think about razors, right? Sometimes they can dull too fast or they can irritate your neck. Oftentimes they cost way too much, like $30 for 8 refills. That is a total scam. So my first reaction when I started to shave with Harry's, how smooth of a shave it was. The weighted handle allowed for me to control the razor even better. And my skin wasn't really impacted. I have very sensitive skin. So Harry's Plus has an advanced pivoting system to reach every corner of your face. Every cartridge includes a lubricating strip with aloe and vitamin E to calm your skin while you shave. And Harry's owns their own world-class blade factory in Germany. I love this because there's no outsourcing, there's no middleman. That same facility has been perfecting blade making for over 100 years. Because they control the entire process from steel to shelf, they keep their costs low. That's why it's so affordable. More on that in a moment. Why pay $30 for refills when Harry's gives you better blades for a fraction of that cost? Harry's has launched their most advanced razor ever, and it's still cheaper than Gillette Fusion 5. If you don't love your shave, Harry's will make it right. No questions asked. Risk-free trial means there's zero downside to giving it a shot. So for a limited time, our listeners can get the Harry's Plus trial set for only $10. That's right, only $10 at harrys.com/chat. This set includes the all-new Harry's Plus razor, 1 refined 5-blade cartridge, a 2-ounce foaming shave gel, and a travel cover to protect your blades on the go. Again, just go to harrys.com/chat. Let them know that we sent you. I've already seen so many people down in the comment section saying, great razor. I agree. So ESPN put together an article looking at the trade possibilities of all teams across the NFL. And ESPN, through their model, has the Niners with an 81% chance of making the playoffs. That's, again, another reason and more ammunition for why I would make a trade. Because you've got a realistic shot here. And some people might say there's a ceiling on this team. They can only be so good without Fred Warner and Nick Bosa. That is true, and I'll give credence to that. But at the same time, how valuable would it be if you can get this young team more playoff experience? And when you get in the dance with the coaching staff like this, Kyle Shanahan on offense with all of his good playoff history outside of Super Bowls, because that is a fact, and you have Robert Saleh, you've got a chance to win any game. And the Niners right now, the projected first-round pick slot, 22 overall because they're the 7th seed in the NFC. And so here's what Jeremy Fowler, NFL Insider, said about the Niners. Adding, subtracting, or sitting it out. He has the Niners adding. The 49ers have been active on the phone lines, looking at several pass rushers and landed Keon White from the Patriots on Tuesday. Linebacker is a need too, but the focus seems to be on the defensive front. Bengals pass rusher Trey Hendrickson is firmly on the radar, but so are several others. And that's why I've been talking about this on the show. This is why we discuss trade rumors, trade buzz, and trade targets, because the Niners are active working the phones and they're looking to improve their roster. They just made that trade for Keon White, and especially if they beat the Giants on Sunday, more moves could be coming. Here's what Joe Schatz said about the Niners, and a lot of fans are going to like this. The key position of need, guard for the Niners going into the deadline. Left guard Connor Colby, a 7th-round rookie, ranks last among all qualified guards in pass block win rate at 84.3%. Now, I agree, and I've been saying since 2021, the Niners need to improve the offensive line. The Niners need to improve the offensive line. The issue with that, though, is that other teams who are bad either have a young quarterback or they're going to draft a quarterback. And so they want to keep their offensive linemen to keep those young quarterbacks upright and healthy. Very hard to bring in a quality offensive lineman at the NFL trade deadline. Nick Wagner on the Niners. He covers San Francisco locally. Who could be on the move? Wide receiver Jawan Jennings is a player who the Niners could trade. The Niners aren't in position to trade anybody, as injuries have ravaged the roster, but Jennings could probably be had if things aligned a certain way. Those conditions would include the Niners getting the likes of Brandon Ayuk, Ricky Pearsall. They're coming back healthy and not losing any of their other healthy receivers to injury. Jennings is in the last year of his deal. He requested a trade in training camp. Though he has had a down season amid a variety of his own injuries, it's hard to envision a scenario in which the Niners can retain him after this season. Now, Kyle Shanahan did say on Wednesday, I'd be surprised if Jawan Jennings wasn't on our team. But what if a team wowed the Niners with a trade offer? 4th-round pick? 5th-round pick? For a player who is probably going to walk after this year when you're in a good spot at that wide receiver position? Something to consider, something to monitor. If I was Jawan Jennings, he wants a bag after one good year. He has to play better, and this year he hasn't played well, plus the attitude hasn't been great. Ben Solak looking at linebacker for the Niners. Who could be targeted? Jets linebacker Quincy Williams. He broke out as an All-Pro in 2023 under Robert Saleh. He has 1 year left on his contract. The Jets probably don't want to move the talented 29-year-old linebacker, but the 49ers should be desperate for a quick boost to their linebacker play after Fred Warner's season-ending ankle injury. Williams could bring in a decent return accordingly. I've talked a lot about Williams here on the show. He's a really good player who knows the scheme, thrived under Robert Saleh. I do think the Niners can survive at linebacker if they make another move at pass rusher. This is also where Nick Martin not being ready to play and a little bit of a reach potentially in that 3rd round has hurt the Niners because he can't see the field. But I think we've seen good things from Tatum Bethune. D. Winters has been up and down. You have some other players like Luke Gifford who can step in and give you some snaps. I wouldn't expect the Niners to trade for a backer just because pass rusher is a lot more important. Whatever happens, I'm going to have you covered right here on the San Francisco 49ers Report. So don't forget to hit that sub button.